Hi, and welcome to What's the Buzz, the only show of its kind that spotlights the entertainment scene in Southern Maryland. I'm your host, James Lepore, and we're coming to you from the Leonardtown Arts Center in Leonardtown, Maryland, by thanks to its manager, Joy Lowe, and the very gracious cooperation of Dan Burris, Leonardtown Mayor. Thank you, Dan. I don't think I have to explain to anybody who is our big guest today. This is the Chesapeake Mermaid. Hi.
Hi.
Do you have a nickname?
Well, I just go by the Chesapeake Mermaid. I was named by the people, and so, my real name is only pronounced by the sea creatures underwater.
Right.
So you can just call me the Chesapeake Mermaid. That works just
Okay, I didn't know if there was anything short I should be calling you, because after all, we are friends. We have been friends for a while.
Yeah.
So millions of people write to me every week and say, find out what it's like to be a mermaid. I may have exaggerated that just a little bit, but what is it like to be a mermaid?
Well, I don't really consider myself that different from you. I mean, I certainly...
Okay, well, thanks for
like
watching What's the Buzz?
But, I'm out there, I love where I live, I spend most of my time here in Southern Maryland, but I do travel throughout the Chesapeake region. We just are so lucky to live in such a beautiful area.
Mm-hmm.
You really can't take a bad picture of it. And, I just consider myself one of the rest of the population here who loves their home.
You're certainly like everybody else, I know.
I know.
Sea creatures. Can you speak to sea creatures?
Speak to sea creatures. Well, we have a tendency to personify animals, and there's certainly a lot of cute videos and stuff going around on the internet, but they're actually very different from us in a lot of ways. I work with animal rescue. I do a lot of support in animal rescue. So, I've worked with a lot of animals, and I can certainly read them in certain ways. When you're doing animal husbandry and you're caring for them, you can certainly tell when they're in discomfort. We try to do our best to make sure that they've got the shortest recovery time period as possible and get them back out into the wild where they can continue their lives.
Gotcha, but when you're under the water, and you encounter other marine life, there must be some special ways you communicate, right?
Well, I'm actually hard of hearing. I lost my hearing about a year ago, and I've got hearing aids now, but we actually use a lot of sign language. You want to know some sea creature sign language?
I want to learn. Teach us.
Sure.
Teach everybody.
Certainly the easiest one to learn is fish.
Fish. Okay,
It's fish.
Everybody go like this.
Yeah, and for those of you who like crab, C is for crab, so you do 2 C's. That's sign language for crab.
I love it,
Yeah.
More. Teach us more.
More. Shrimp.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that. Okay, let's do more.
Yeah.
What was shrimp?
This is shrimp.
Shrimp, okay.
Yeah, so when you're eating a good meal, you can say, more shrimp, please.
I'm going to do that every night.
There you go, yeah.
Oh, gee.
So it's a lot of fun.
Now, what's the difference between being in the bay and being in the ocean? Tell me about the difference.
Like being in the Atlantic. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I actually have made a few trips. Most of the time I'm in the bay, and there's not a whole lot of wave action. A lot of our coastlines are pretty calm. Once you get out into the Atlantic, like I swam ashore in Ocean City. We did a sea glass festival.
Oh, cool.
And I swam ashore on the beach and surprised all of the beachgoers out in Ocean City. But, the Atlantic is very different. There's much bigger animals. They've spotted a whale shark out there a couple times. Last year, they also have seals and sea turtles, the stuff that I rescue. A lot of times it's more often on the Atlantic side than it is inside the bay. So it's a whole different environment, much larger animals. The water is a lot more choppy, so it's more difficult to swim inshore. There's a lot of wave action.
Now, what about salt versus fresh? We all know the ocean is salty. Now, what about the bay? Is the bay salt water? Or?
Yes, the Chesapeake Bay is actually brackish water because we've got our fresh water coming in from our local rivers and things like that.
New definition. Brackish water being, what, a mix between the two?
A mix of fresh water and salt water, which makes the Chesapeake Bay one of the world's largest estuaries. And we're really lucky to live here. It's a very
I feel another vocabulary word coming on. Please define estuary.
Estuary.
Or please tell us more. See what I did there? Okay.
About that. Well, an estuary is what we were talking about. It's where the fresh water mixes with the salt water.
Okay.
So the Chesapeake Bay, they also refer it to as a natural nursery because it's really shallow until we get a good balance of the sunlight coming in. So a lot of the animals that migrate in and out of the bay, this is where they come to start their families. It's where they meet their mates and they're going to have their babies and things like that. So
I love it.
It's a magical magical place, isn't it?
No, you do so much education to us land-dwelling people. What do you wish that people knew more about the bay?
About the bay?
Yeah.
Well, oysters are a really important part of the bay, and they really need help. They're a keystone species, and so there's a lot of work to be done, and there's something that everybody can do in their lives. Little changes, maybe when they go get fast food, they skip the straw. Or, maybe you don't get that spoon, that plastic spoon, if you don't need it.
Oh, because those things end up in
those things
the
end up
bay.
in the bay. They end up in the water.
Now, I understand how that would affect fish. Now, how does that affect oysters?
How does that affect oysters?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of that stuff comes down and it pollutes the bay. It gets clogged up in a lot of our marshy areas.
Right.
And then also extra added chemicals create pollution. That actually is what causes our algae blooms. We get too much algae. Well, a little bit of algae is important. Too much can become a problem, and that can really foul up a lot of our oyster reefs and things like that. We call it fouling material when it kind of clogs everything up. And when we don't have oyster reefs, we don't have the habitats for the fish, and it kind of cascades.
Are we
from
running
there.
out of oysters? I mean, are they on their way out to be...
Actually, yeah, our native oysters, we're changing the bottom of the bay. There used to be a lot of places where oysters live and oyster reefs were. We're now down to about 1 or 2% of what we naturally had in the Chesapeake Bay. So it's drastically lower than a lot of people realize. But, there's a lot of work being done. There's a lot of really special people out there, hopefully like some of our viewers that want to get involved, that want to help, that want to change it. And so I'm out there at events trying to promote what needs to be done, find new and fresh audiences and lead them to the opportunities they have where they can get involved and they can learn. They can do little things at home like I talked to you about, like, skipping the stuff in fast food, but they can also come out and they can help rebuild oyster reefs. They can recycle their shells, so when they're wining and dining with their oyster bars, they can recycle that shell.
I didn't want to bring this up, so it's okay. It's okay to eat an oyster now and then,
oh,
right?
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Kids come up to me at events and they ask me, you're a mermaid, what is it that you eat? And I often tell them, I eat many of the same things that you guys eat. Actually recycling oyster shell is the best way to get fresh shell back in our bay. We have a shell shortage. Can you believe that? A lot of people don't know. But
so if the shells go back in the bay,
yes.
then the oyster creatures themselves can go back in and inhabit the shells?
No, oysters.
Is that how it works?
Oysters live and grow on other oysters. It's kind of
I didn't know any of this.
It's kind of like if you were going to sit in one place all of your life and find a place to live, what's the best way where you would know how to live, right? You might ask Grandpa, because Grandpa's been here a long time.
Right.
And oysters are pretty much the same way. Like, they're going to go around as little babies. They can move around, but they want to find a place where they can sit and they can live their whole lives. So they're out there looking for Grandpa, and there's no Grandpa.
Right.
So when we recycle our shells, even though we've eaten the oysters and we're putting the shells back in the bay, the oysters are going to go and they're going to attach to those other oyster shells.
Who does that, Chesapeake Mermaid? I mean, who puts the shells back in? Do restaurants do that? Or?
Yes, restaurants can be
okay.
a part of programs, and there's actually shellrecycling.org is one of the places that they can check it out.
Shellrecycling.org.
Yes,
cool.
So individuals can do it. You can drop your shells off at locations, or restaurants can get on board. They can work with the Oyster Recovery Partnership.
Right.
And so there's a Shell Alliance. All these people that are contributing, their shells are going back into the Chesapeake Bay. So people can support restaurants that do shell recycling in Chesapeake Bay, and that's it.
This is over. And don't forget, you can go to live events where you can meet Chesapeake Mermaid, and she will tell you about what you can do to be a part of all this.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time coming onto the land and what your impressions were, and meeting land-dwelling people such as me?
Well, I'm almost 400 years old, so
You do not look a day over 397, I swear.
Thank you, I try. But I was perfectly happy being out there, moving around, swimming, doing my things, working with the animals, working with the habitats. But it wasn't until I found my friend Larvy, the magical bivalvian, and he's actually a distant cousin related to the oysters in the Chesapeake Bay, but he is the last of the magical bivalvians, and he had a story to tell. He wanted to tell all of the kids in our region about the Chesapeake Bay and about what it is that they can do. So, it's a really exciting thing. So that's when I decided to come on land, and I started meeting with people, talking to them, and attending events so that I could tell my story and I can introduce them.
Do you still work with him?
Yes, I do. Yeah, you want to meet him?
I would love to.
Would you like to meet him? Okay, well we've got
Just
him
say
right
yes.
over here.
Look at this.
This is Larvy, the magical bivalvian.
Can I pet him?
And yeah, absolutely. He likes to be touched and stroked and things like that. And because his name is Larvy, you know, that's what they call a baby oyster. So when you look at it under a microscope and it's got these little hairs, he's swimming around, that's what Larvy looks like.
So actually we can thank him for helping you become an advocate for the bay.
Yeah, and just like the oyster reefs out in the bay, he's been out there for so long, he's become an oyster reef himself. So look, he's got these little shell friends that have grown and attached to him that are living in here, and there's all these little nooks and crannies where you might find things like mud crabs or grass shrimp or American eels. Those are all different kinds of species that we have in the bay.
Now, is he
that live in
unusually big, or do some oysters actually get as big as...
Well, you know, oysters naturally used to grow pretty big. They could be about, I don't know, like the size of a football a long, long time ago.
Huh.
We can still get some really big ones in the bay now, but usually somewhere around like 3 inches or something like that is when they start to harvest them. So that's about the size that you see them on your dinner plate. But, you know, Larvy here is much larger than what you would normally find. But we like to say that it's because he's so ancient. And he's also related to the oysters in kind of a distant way. And just like oysters like to stick to each other, he likes to stick with me. So he normally finds himself stepped up on top of my head. Isn't that funny?
It is.
And the kids love to climb up in here and hide the little critters inside of Larvy here,
That's
and
so cool.
They like to pet it. Isn't he fun? You can give him a little pet.
That is very cute. I love it. Well, I guess people have a lot of misconceptions about marine life, you know, size of oysters, things like that. What other things would people be surprised about marine life that most people don't know?
About marine life, well, gosh, you know, there's a lot of programs out there that are helping with the animals, and I think the biggest misconception is that people seem to think that a lot of this is being taken care of on their own. Like, everybody thinks that wildlife's important, right? But it's very underfunded. You know, a lot of the wildlife organizations have been shutting down. They've been short on funding. You know, if somebody happens to come across a turtle and it's in distress and they want to drop it off, you know, certainly the wildlife centers would love it if you made a donation when you dropped it off, if you would come and help out and volunteer. And, you know, that's a really great way of getting to be associated with the animals. There's also all kinds of fun things that I've recently found out too. There's groups like that I volunteer with called Turtles Fly Too. Did you know turtles could fly? They absolutely can. So sea turtles, you know, can grow really, really big, sometimes up to like 500, 600 pounds. It's really impractical to take them from the shore and bring them to a wildlife center and, like, say, the back of a truck. If they've got water that's sloshing around, it's really problematic. They have volunteer pilots that actually help. They load the turtles onto these planes, and these volunteer pilots spend, you know, their hours flying these turtles to rescue situations, aquariums, and different nonprofit groups that help them out. So there are a lot of little places where, you know, ordinary people can get involved, you know, and help out with a lot of
You just answered a whole bunch of misconceptions right there. Like, there's nothing I can do to help. Well, that's a giant misconception, because it sounds like there's a million things people can do to help. Even if you're a pilot, go rescue a sea turtle. I've got so many questions. There's a big one I'm dying to ask you, but I'm going to ask you as soon as we come back from our sponsors. Hi, and welcome back to What's the Buzz? I am here with Chesapeake Mermaid. I'm so happy that you're here. I've been dying to ask you a question. I bet everybody else is thinking the same thing. Are you the only one?
Am I the only mermaid, or am I the only Chesapeake Mermaid?
let's start with, are you the only mermaid?
Well, there are a lot of fish in the bay, and there are other mermaids out there, certainly.
Right.
Some I've met, some I've come across, but I'm kind of like a Tarzan of the bay. My whole story is in my storybook, which is called The Last by Valvian. So everybody can find out about what happened to all the other mermaids, where they might be able to find them. But so often they camouflage, they have adaptations. Mm-hmm. There's another word for you there, and they might look like other fish in the bay, so you might not spot them right off, but if people keep their eyes out, they're gonna see some of the other mermaids. Now, a lot of them are out in the ocean, they're out swimming in the Atlantic, and really they're all over the world, but I am the Chesapeake Mermaid. I tend to stay in the Chesapeake Bay, and that's where I like doing a lot of the work that I do, and that's where my friends are.
I know you're happy, and I know you love being a mermaid. Are there ever any times where you just say, gee, I wish I was human for like one day?
Oh gosh, I'm really happy to be who I am. Certainly there's fascinating things about humans, and a lot of times people, the kids come up to me at events and they go, "Have you ever met Ariel?" And I say, "Well, she's a princess. She's off doing very princessy things."
Yeah.
Do
Has
I
security guards, things
yeah.
like that, Secret Service.
Certainly I would love to meet a princess one day, but I only know Ariel about as well as everybody else does. I've seen her movie.
Gotcha.
She seems pretty cool. But yeah, I'm just so wrapped up in what it is that I'm trying to do that I think I'm pretty happy with who I am.
And you don't have to shave your legs, which has got to be a plus, right?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Something I wanted to ask you before we just ended up talking about so many different things.
Yeah.
Oysters are important, aren't
Oysters
they?
are
not just
absolutely
as
important.
food, not just as something that you work on, but tell us a little bit about why oysters are so important and why we should care so much about them.
Yeah, actually, oysters are what we call a keystone species. They're very important because they are the foundation, the building blocks upon which everything else in the bay kind of works. So in this whole big thing that we have, the Chesapeake Bay ecosystem, which really isn't just the bay, it's the Chesapeake watershed that encompasses all of the different states and stuff around here. The thing about the oysters is that they're filtering the water, they're getting rid of a lot of the pollutants, the algae, and stuff like that we have going on, that they love a good meal of algae. If you ever go over to Horn Point Oyster Hatchery over on the eastern shore, people can take a tour and they can see all of the different colors of algae and all of the different tanks with all of the oysters eating them and everything. That's a lot of fun. But they also help, they build these elaborate reefs, they're growing together in this network, and so they've got all these little nooks and crannies where other animals, other things are going to live and be protected. They've got, food resources and stuff like that nearby. So remember before I talked about that natural nursery? That's a part of this whole important structure are the oyster reefs, the shellfish reefs that we've lost so much of within the Chesapeake Bay. Also helps with erosion too. Oysters are really rock hard, so they're going to be a strong barrier when we've got storms and stuff like that. Right. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. You do a lot of events, and here's where the entertainment aspect comes from this. It's fun meeting you. Kids, I know kids go, I'm having a blast. Kids go bananas meeting you. So, how often do you do events? Where do you do events? What kind of things go on in events?
Oh gosh, it really depends on the event.
Three questions in one.
I do lots of different kinds of events, but really they come in two main categories. There are mermaid events, which is where people can come up and they can meet me. We have our story time. We show off our book. We let everybody know about the different things that are important on the bay. And I meet kids one-on-one. We get photos. I introduce them to my fish friends. I usually have some very plush fish and some models and things like that they can see and touch and experience and really get up close rather than being around actual wildlife. So there's no animals harmed in any of my shows, which is a really great plus.
And people, especially kids, are encouraged to take photos and stuff with
Absolutely.
you, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a lot of fun. I love being around the kids. They are such a blessing. They're so wonderful.
Don't be afraid.
And
Chesapeake Mermaid is very accessible.
They're
to be with, see.
Oh my gosh, I love working with the kids. They're so much fun.
That includes me, right?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
I thought you meant that.
Big kids are totally welcome. Big kids are totally welcome. The other kind of event are volunteer events, and that's where really the the drive behind the Chesapeake Mermaid comes into play. And that is building oyster reefs. It might be working in a wildlife center. It might be helping out with a nonprofit for a day, cleaning up a park or a beach or something like that. And there's lots and lots, I work with so many different kinds of nonprofits. Everybody may have heard of some of the big players, Chesapeake Bay Foundation. That's a really big one. They've got lots of offices throughout the bay. They do a lot of really great work. I've worked with them on oyster reefs and oyster restoration, oyster gardening and things like that. But there's also little groups like maybe you've never heard of Kent Island beach cleanups.
Nope.
You may never have heard of Clean Bread and Cheese Creek.
Nope.
And these are all single people that
Right.
decided, they were excited, and they wanted to flame that passion by starting their own nonprofit organization.
Honestly, Chesapeake Mermaid, anybody who comes to an event and talks to you, even just for a little while, is going to catch your enthusiasm. And
I'm so glad.
Well,
that's really,
you're doing an amazing thing to help the environment and teach people, and
Thank
plus
you.
it's just fun to meet you and take pictures with you and stuff. You know what else is fun? Chesapeake Mermaid's book. We talk about your book.
Yeah. You want to hear about my book?
Yeah, do you have one?
Yeah,
To show?
actually.
You get to
it's
see one,
right
too.
here. It's called The Last Bivalvian. Yeah.
Yep.
And the story actually was put together by me. It's my story. It's also the history of the Chesapeake Bay.
Yes.
And it's
Right there.
also, it stars our little friend Largy here that you met earlier in our first half. And it was illustrated by my half-sister, Angela Mitchell.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, she was a part of this too. But it's got a lot of other things in here. You were asking earlier
Maps.
about.
I love maps.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. I always love stories with magical maps, and so we've got some really fun things on here. This is a magical map of the past, and this is our map of the future with a lot of sites where kids can go and they can engage oysters or find out about some of the oyster stuff that's going on.
So this is a fictional story, but it's also
it's got
filled
science
with
facts.
Science facts.
Yeah.
Don't tease us. Where can we get these?
Oh, well, this is available on ChesapeakeMermaid.com. We also sell it at my events.
Okay.
And it's also available on Amazon. So, yeah.
And autographed copies are available for TV hosts. What?
Absolutely. Well, for every purchase that's made, it also helps us to donate them throughout the region. So we've donated quite a few books to a lot of places throughout the area, parks and dentist office and things like that. Lots and lots of different places where kids might be able to pick them up and really just get the next generation interested about the Chesapeake Bay.
What's the age range for this book, or is it just, good for everybody?
Oh, well, we figure the start's about 8. We're thinking about 8 to 12, but honestly...
All right, so in a couple of years, I'll be old enough to read this.
But, at events, a lot of people come with their younger brothers and sisters. They're just as enchanted. They're excited about mermaids, and they love to hear the story, too. So
There is so much to learn about you, so much to read about, and best of all, oh, thank you.
You can have a copy.
So much to questions to ask you. So people need to go to events. They need to go to live events. You need to meet Chesapeake Mermaid. You'll just flip.
Yeah,
Best way for
please.
people to find out where you're going to be next is where?
Well, we've got Facebook is probably the best avenue. We're going to be at, let me see, in March, I believe, we're going to be at the Pigs and Prawns Conservation Dinner. That's going to be by the Coastal Conservation Center, the Maryland chapter. They're going to have me out there, and I'm going to be engaging a lot of the families that are interested in fishing and interested in helping the bay. They've been doing a lot of stuff to bring oyster reef building to schools and to educational opportunities, and they're also doing a lot to support women in the outdoors, get women interested in getting out there and getting some fresh new experiences. So those are things I like to do too.
Very cool. So Facebook and other social media, mainly
yeah.
Facebook.
Well, I'm on Twitter as Chessie Mermaid.
Chessie Mermaid.
And
that's
also,
kind of like a nickname, right?
Yeah, it's a little shorter. You can call me Chessie if you want. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I got a book and I can call her Chessie. Life is good.
Yeah, and I'm also on Instagram. And of course, they can check out ChesapeakeMermaid.com.
Okay, I do believe our lovely producer Heather maybe could put all those in one handy little place for viewers to see right
Absolutely.
here. And thank you for doing that. And it has just been a thrill get this book. Go see Chesapeake Mermaid anywhere you can. I mean, you're always in the newspaper too, so I think if
Yeah,
people
I've
look
been
at
in
the
magazines and
local
things like
papers
that,
too,
yeah.
they'll see that you're up in North Beach, Chesapeake Beach. You're all over the place. You're doing
Yeah.
amazing work. You're fun to be with. Kids love you. TV show hosts love you.
Aw.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for watching. There's a new episode every Monday. I can't always promise that I'll have a mermaid tail on my lap, but hey, you never know. I want to thank you for watching What's the Buzz? I want to thank my sponsors. I want to thank the Leonardtown Arts Center. I want to thank our newest sponsor, Denicola's Cajun Foods. And of course, I want to thank our creative director, Reggie Rice, and Leonardtown Mayor, Dan Burrs. Thanks to all of you. See you next week.
Mermaid kisses and starfish wishes.